Get free tech advice for your business from O2 Gurus. Search O2 Business for more. Hey guys, welcome to BTech. Basil here with a quick comparison between the Motorola Moto G 3rd generation and the Huawei Honor 7. The Honor 7 costs £250 versus around £209 for the Motorola Moto G. But they're very, very different in terms of, well, a lot of features. So let's get cracking. And design-wise, the Huawei Honor 7 is an all-metal phone. Flat sides, feels really nice and rich. Feels very Huawei, like a small Ascend Mate 7. The Moto G, plastic through and through. But that's for a reason in terms of the fact it's water resistant. So you can submerge this thing and it won't be harmed. What's more, it also has an ergonomic curved back and does sit in the hand a little bit more warmly than the Honor 7, but it doesn't feel as premium, it doesn't feel as expensive, and it feels a fair bit cheaper, not just the £40 cheaper that it actually is. As far as the sizes go, you can also see you've got different size screens on here, 5.2 inches versus 5 inches. Not a huge difference, but the Huawei Honor 7 is a fair bit taller. What you've got on there at the top is a front-facing flashlight, so you can smooth out that skin when you're taking those selfies from the 8 megapixel camera. As far as key design highlights on the Honor 7 goes, you've got a quick launch button on the left and you can customize that to quickly launch Facebook, Twitter, Google Now, whatever you want to. You can customize it in 3 ways: tap, double tap, or indeed long press. And I've set long press for Google Now, as you can see. You've also got a fingerprint scanner around the back, and at £250, I am super impressed here. Not only is it a fingerprint scanner, it's a fingerprint scanner that works. So tap the fingerprint scanner, it'll wake up your phone. Swipe down and it will pull down the notifications tray. Swipe up and it will multitask, long press it, and it will take you home. That's awesome. The fact it works so smoothly and intuitively, I've only been using this for a few hours, is great. Side by side, I have to say the Honor 7 looks much more expensive. Even though the Motorola Moto G 3rd generation is a cheaper phone, it feels, well, a lot cheaper. You can, however, customize it a fair bit. So if you do pick one up in the UK, pick it up with Moto Maker, and you can customize things like the colors of the plates, the back cover, the front, etc., which is a nice addition that you won't get from Huawei. The Huawei Honor 7 is going to be available in silver and a black color as well. The screens are totally different too in terms of size, 5 inches versus 5.2, but they're the same in terms of technology. You've got IPS tech on here, but they're different in terms of resolution. Full HD versus 720p HD. Practically speaking, what that means is the Honor 7 is a sharper screen and it's a fair bit better too. Just in the side-by-side, the Motorola Moto G looks a fair bit more washed out. Definitely, I would rather be looking at this for prolonged periods of time. It's also worth noting that the additional size will be really great for gaming. And we're going to come on to gaming later, but it's a fair bit more spec-alicious in terms of performance too. Moving on to the user interfaces, this is one area the Motorola Moto G wins out for me. You've got a relatively stock Android experience on here. You've got applications strewn across your home screens and widgets as well, and you've got an apps tray too. Pull down from the top and you've got your notifications tray, and you've got multitasking, quick toggles, etc. Really simple stock experience in which more people took Motorola's lead on this and made their UI stock. That's one thing that Huawei doesn't do. Emotion UI is very Huawei. You've got no applications tray, kind of like iOS. You've got a pull-down search bar, kind of like iOS, but you do have the pull-down notifications and quick toggles. One thing that Huawei has implemented is a reverse hidden apps menu, so you can find applications that you don't want strewn on your home screens here. And this is perfect, and it can kind of emulate an applications tray a bit. Like I said, the real key advantage to this phone over any other though comes in the form of that quick launch button and that gesture-centric fingerprint scanner, which is awesome. Moving on to multimedia, you've got a 13 megapixel camera, no optical image stabilization versus a 20 megapixel camera, also no optical image stabilization. In my quick shots I've done with these two side by side, I will say the Huawei seems to have performed a fair bit better, but I can't say anything too conclusive till I get them in. You've also got 8 megapixel front-facing camera on the Honor 7 versus a 5 megapixel camera, but we know pixels aren't everything. So again, check back to see how that fares, even though one thing that Motorola doesn't have is a photo light. If we move on to gaming, this is what I was talking about earlier. A Kirin 935 processor paired with 3 gigabytes of RAM at that £250 price point is awesome. That's versus a Snapdragon 410 processor with just 2 gig of RAM, 16 gig internal memory across both devices. And it's definitely worth saying that 16 gig version of this is the one I'd recommend. do not get the 8 gig version with 1 gig unless you're, well, prepared to take your phone in for trade-in in a few months, because Android will fill up that 8 gig in no time flat. You've also got expandability across both devices, so micro SD cards up to 128 gig in the Huawei Honor 7, up to I think it's 64 gig in the Motorola Moto G 3rd Gen. So they're the key highlights in terms of the front camera, and the rear camera really is where the Huawei wins out, because you can do things like take light trail shots, slow shutter speed up to 30 seconds. The stock camera launcher with the Motorola Moto G just isn't as flexible either. So multimedia, it's all down to the Huawei. Moving on to connectivity, it's also Huawei winning out again, because you've got up to Cat 6 LTE, which is great. And finally, battery life, it's roughly 2600 milliamp cell versus a 3100 milliamp cell in the Huawei Honor 7. Also, the Honor 7 supports fast charging. Yeah, I really can't see why, if you've got £209 to spend on a Motorola Moto G, you wouldn't stump up the extra, get a metal device, unless you're a real stock Android purist or really want waterproofing on your smartphone. So that's been a quick comparison between the Huawei Honor 7 and the Motorola Moto G 3rd generation. Hopefully it hasn't seemed too lopsided. I love the first Moto G, I love the second Moto G, I like this Moto G a lot, but I just don't think at that £209 price it's as competitive as something like this. If you've got any questions, please fire them in the comment section below. If you like BTech in general, subscribe to the channel. And that's exactly how you're going to stay on top of everything we do. Thanks for watching. The Sony Xperia Z4. I wasn't even that annoyed when I heard it wouldn't be called the Z4 here in the UK. It's a Z3 Plus. The Plus seemed a little bit more appropriate. After all, it's a very similar device to its predecessor. It looks very similar, it has a waterproof body, lots of cores, 3 gig of RAM, a 5.2-inch Full HD display. Sony Xperia Z3 Plus, pretty appropriate name. So what is new? It's a thinner phone with less flaps, more memory, and a new processor. That sounds great, right? Well, it should be great, and it's great for the most part, but there are some major shortcomings. We're going to start off with the design, and fortunately this is one